Robin Lundberg will join us a little later in the show to talk about what we'll be discussing here in the big story coming up in a couple of minutes. And that is the WNBA, where deadlines have been set. Lines have been drawn in the sand now. And you could be talking about losing WNBA games at this point. It's not a particularly long season as it is. So we'll get into that coming up. There is news from the NFL today. Player roster decisions being made. Talk about, potential changes in instant replay. Stuff like that going on. And also, yesterday, we didn't have the adequate amount of time to spend on it, so I want to talk about it today, and that's the passing of Rondale Moore, who took his own life over the weekend. And a tragic story of somebody who's just 25 years old, a promising receiver in the NFL. That's coming up a little later on in the program as well. And we're going to open up a very cool autographed baseball later on in the show. I got a prize, and it's a autographed mystery baseball. We're going to open it up at the end of the show. You're going to get to see it for yourself. And we'll see. Maybe it'll be something cool. Maybe it'll be Shohei Ohtani or Bobby Witt Jr., one of the young rising stars in baseball. We'll see what we get a little later on in the show when we do that. All right, we start things out every day on this show talking about the top stories in sports, and that means the big story. And the big story last night in the NBA was the San Antonio Spurs, who won their 9th game in a row. They go into Detroit and beat what, some people believe is the best team in the East. On paper right now, it certainly is in terms of wins and losses. However, as Kurt Heelan has pointed out on this show, there isn't necessarily the fear being struck in NBA teams that could potentially play in the playoffs in the East when it comes to the Pistons, because they're not a particularly great shooting team. They play hard for 48 minutes, and that is half the battle these days in the NBA, is getting a team that can play hard for 48 minutes. But you saw last night, even on a night where Victor Wembanyama didn't have his best shooting night, Detroit and San Antonio, if that was an NBA Finals preview that we saw on Monday night between the Spurs and the Pistons, boy, the NBA better hope that doesn't wind up being the NBA Final, because San Antonio will win that thing in 5 games. Maybe the Pistons get that one obligatory game. Other than that, they can't hang with Wemby and company. And I keep saying it, man. San Antonio really might wind up being the 1 seed in the East. They've basically already won, I think, the season series from Oklahoma City. So if they finish in a tie, and I think they're 2 or 3 games back of the Thunder out there in the West right now. If San Antonio winds up the 1 seed in the West, you really could be talking about them in the NBA Finals. And then the question starts to become, well, who would you like to see them play out of the East, if that's the case? And frankly, it's the Knicks or Celtics to me. Maybe Cleveland? They're coming on and playing better right now. But, man, that was a rough night for Detroit. And they tried their best. And teams are trying this avenue, or going down this avenue of trying to be physical with Victor Wembanyama. This is not your typical European basketball player, folks. You have to stop thinking that all European basketball players are soft and you could just push around Wemby. And I know when he turns sideways, you could lose him because he's so thin. But he's got some strength to him. And, he's been around enough to see the reputation that European players have. And he's making a concerted effort to make sure that he's not getting pushed around. That it's not going to be a situation where you can take him out of the game. Even on nights where he doesn't have, I think he was 21-17 last night. He had like 6 blocks. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was impactful. Not the huge scoring night. He got some points late. But I keep saying this. He is the game changer of game changers in this league. He's not going to win the MVP this year. But you take him away from the Spurs, while they will win games. And frankly, they might even win a series or 2 in the playoffs. They're that good. Mitch Johnson's done that good a job with this team. While all that might be true, the difference between this team with Wemby on the floor and Wemby off the floor against the best teams in the league, you can't get away from it. You can't escape it. But San Antonio, looking like they could be the team to beat in the West right now. With the Spurs still, with the Thunder still trying to sort of recover from the time where they missed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is obviously proving his worth. A note from women's basketball, if I may. Pay us what you owe us. The shirt there from Paige Beckers that we saw during the All-Star game this year for the WNBA. And now the rubber's about to meet the road, because you have the WNBA coming out and saying, March 10th, no CBA done by then. You're talking about losing games. Remember, this is a league that still has an expansion draft to do. They haven't done it. They'll have a WNBA draft to do after the NCAA women's basketball tournament. That's in jeopardy now. And here's my take on it. And I don't like being the guy that has to stand up and say this. Mansplaining and blah, blah, blah. It's time to get a deal done. Okay? I don't know how much more the owners and the league are going to move on this thing. But if WNBA players overplay their hand here, there may not wind up being a league left to come back to. And there may not be a fan base to come back to, because you could easily be forgotten in this world of so many different things to occupy our time, so many different things to do. You're talking about players that are going to make 4 times what they were making before this labor strife took place. And if that's the best deal you could get, you should sign up for that at this point. Because we're looking at a situation where now you're talking about losing games in a league that doesn't have a lot of games to begin with. Get a deal done. Somebody's got to be the grown-up in the room here and say, all right, look, we've taken this as far as we can. This is the best deal we're going to get. Who is that person? We'll find out. Robin Lundberg will join us coming up in about 20 minutes to discuss it. And whether or not are the players overplaying their hand at this point. We'll get into that with him as well. There's news from the NFL to discuss around the NFL combines and more. We'll talk about that with Sam Yarnell next. Good to have you with us. Continuing on this Tuesday edition of the show. Robin Lundberg coming up 10 minutes from now. Does a great job with SI on women's basketball. Deadlines have been set when it comes to a collective bargaining agreement. What does that mean? We will find out. Sam Yarnell has undug himself from the snow. You make your girlfriend do the shoveling. Tell the truth. You're that guy, aren't you? I have a friend who has kids. He's like, the greatest part about having kids is having them shovel the snow. That's the best part about being a dad.
See, here's the thing, Jason. And while it's a perfectly linear thought process, I have no qualms with it. The person that I am, I'm just a little bit too much of a everything has to be done my way. Maybe it's the only child in me, who knows? So I can't let other people do it. Nope, I've got to go do it. I've got to make sure it's done how I want it done. It can't be anyone else's way. Has to be mine.
All right, fair enough. Well, I'm glad
unfortunately, that is what I spent all of yesterday doing, instead of talking about what an embarrassment that gold medal match in the men's hockey side of the Olympics was.
Wait a minute. Why was it an embarrassment?
Oh,
we don't have enough time for this.
I'm so glad you asked, Jason, because nobody can stop from embarrassing themselves with relation to this game. We don't need to get into everything going on with the U.S. side of things, because I have a very staunch belief that politics and sports should be two very separate things. And it seems like one side of this country has mixed the two together yet again, as we've done so many times over the last 10 years. Let's just be honest about that. But from the Canadian side, it was unbelievably disappointing to hear the comments from their head coach and an alum of my beloved Hofstra University, John Cooper, one of the greatest coaches in the NHL, one of the greatest coaches in NHL history, absolutely throw up into a microphone after the game saying, I don't understand the point of 3-on-3 hockey. I got news for you, folks. The only reason that both of those teams were there, while I agree with John Cooper's sentiment that it's not real hockey, is because of 3-on-3 hockey. Both of those teams won their semifinal games in a 3-on-3 period. It was disgusting. It was a disgrace to the sport. And I think everyone can agree it would have been a much more eventful much more entertaining final for those of us who appreciate hockey if you gave us Sweden or Finland and Slovakia in that final.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Sam Yarnell on the gold medal game. He didn't get to weigh in yesterday, so he gets to weigh in now. Listen, I've been a Kyle Pitts guy literally from the time he got drafted into this league. I really have. I've been waiting for that Kyle Pitts moment. And it felt like late last season we started to get it a little bit this past season. So, them potentially franchise tagging him. I mean, I don't have a big problem with it.
I'm with you, weirdly enough, because when the news came down, I thought my immediate reaction was, what are they doing? Like, what is going on? But then you think about it, and first of all, you have to consider, Jason, where are the Atlanta Falcons right now? Right? New management coming in, relying on new coaching, right? A lot of turnover in Atlanta lately. If you can keep a first-round pick, no matter how high you drafted him or overdrafted him or whatever people want to say at this point, I know that the franchise tag is a very controversial thing in the NFL right now, but the fact of the matter is the franchise tag for the tight end is a cheap one, right? It's not an expensive franchise tag. Out of all the franchise tags out there, Kyle Pitts is a guy who, if you look at his development year over year, has gotten better. It is undeniable. Year over year, his production increases, and it feels like the Falcons are taking a gamble on that happening again next year.
And look, still big questions for that team at the quarterback position. Do they believe Michael Penix is still the guy? That is something they're obviously going to have to figure out. Added late into the show because it only popped this morning. And it doesn't surprise me that we're kind of at this point right now when it comes to A.J. Brown. You've got Nick Sirianni out there saying he can't guarantee that A.J. Brown will be back with the team in 2026. And look, Howie Roseman and him actually seem to be on the same page on this, which is rare when we talk about the Eagles and these two being on the same page on anything. But the quote from Sirianni, my expectation is he wants to be here, and obviously you want good players like that in your building. As Howie said, it's hard to get good players in this league. AJ's a great player, and AJ's a good teammate, and AJ is a good person. Does he want to be here? Yes. Do I want him to be here? Yes. So, kind of mixed signals there. Will AJ be here next season? I think we're still in a spot. I can't guarantee how anything is going to play out into next season. That is certainly not a full-throated commitment, Sam.
Yeah. Again, I said this last week on the show for different reasons. Really tough time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. Let's call a spade a spade. It is. First of all, on the A.J. Brown thing, there is an important note about A.J. Brown. If you didn't see it over the weekend, go find it. It's on all of his social medias, definitely Twitter. A.J. Brown put out a very long, very detailed video going into his struggles with mental health, what it's like being a professional athlete in the NFL, all of the different, narratives that he has to deal with and all that kind of thing. And I thought it was great insight into kind of what the mind of an NFL wide receiver really is compared to what Jason and I make it on TV shows, and so many other people make it on TV shows as the diva wide receiver. It did open my eyes to that a little bit. Again, the Eagles are a disaster right now. I don't think even Eagles fans would disagree with me with that. You have your two best offensive linemen contemplating retirement because you just kicked out the offensive line coach who's been there since Donovan McNabb or something. There's turnover galore on this offense. You've got the A.J. Brown scenario, which, Jason, let's be honest, has been playing itself out for the last year and a half and 20 months with this team. It is a disastrous time for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. You've got half of their media base calling for the job of the coach, and the other half of the media base calling for their Super Bowl MVP quarterback to be traded. It is just a very, very difficult time in Philadelphia right now.
It is a volatile situation for a team that literally just a little over a year ago was celebrating a Super Bowl win, which feels like a lifetime ago now in Philadelphia, which just goes to show you how quick your fortunes can change in this town. Real quick, replay officials talking about the possibility, or there is the discussion of replay officials being able to throw flags on non-football actions. We've only got about 25 seconds to talk about it. Look, see, you don't like it. These officials on the field can't see everything, no matter how many of them there are. And they point to the example in the Super Bowl, Sam, and I mean, maybe it opens up the Pandora's box, though, for more of this sort of thing. That's the danger. Now you've got 5 seconds.
We talk all the time about how bad these guys are at their jobs. Don't give them more power.
We're coming back with Robin Lundberg. Talk WNBA labor strife next. This Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap continues, and it does with Robin Lundberg, who does a terrific job on women's basketball over at SI. Catch him on YouTube as well. Sirius XM. He's everywhere. All right, I saw the headline yesterday and immediately thought of you. Isn't that great? See, somebody thinks of you. They see a headline and they think of Robin Lundberg. It's a wonderful thing. Except it's almost March, and this thing between the WNBA Players Association owners and Kathy Engelbert and all this is still not done, Robin. And now you've got the WNBA saying, all right, now it's where the rubber meets the road because you have deadlines being set. March 10th, otherwise we could start talking about losing games. They still haven't had an expansion draft, Robin. What is the sense around people like you that cover this league and talk to people about, is this thing going to get done?
I mean, it's hard to say anything definitively, right? I do think yesterday was good news. A deadline was needed. Deadlines spur action one way or another because, there's no consequences without a deadline. Otherwise, there's no reason to come to a deal. And Adam Silver even said it the other day, in collective bargaining, it usually goes to the 11th hour. We're getting close to the 11th hour. Now we'll see, exactly where everybody stands and we'll get an answer. Look, the common sense tells me a deal will get done. That doesn't mean common sense will prevail necessarily because the players have been pretty steadfast in their position. Basically, the divide is over revenue share. The players want a bigger chunk of the gross revenue share before expenses. The league is willing to pay a big chunk of the net revenue share money made after expenses. But when you look at it like this, games being missed in any revenue sharing model, games being missed is less revenue. So there's not going to be that money coming in. There are a lot of players in the WNBA. Not all of them are in Unrivaled or things like that. They famously have not made much money in the past. So the part of me, the rational part of me says, all right, you're starting to, the threat of missing paychecks is coming up. And not only missing paychecks, but missing paychecks that are going to be 4 to 5 times what they were previously. Because I could write the press release as such a huge win for the WNBA players, no matter how it looks, right? No matter what the final version of the deal is. So common sense would tell me that the league will move a little bit more, like just a little bit more to secure a handshake agreement and get things over the line. But the players are going to have to come way down to meet the league. And that, the games being missed is the leverage play here.
Are they overplay? So in that regard, are the players overplaying their hand? If they have to come that far down, are they overplaying their hand here?
I mean, I guess you could shoot for the moon and settle for the stars or whatever. I don't think that's a saying, but you get what I'm saying.
That is. That works.
In general, yes, I do think they're overplaying their hand to a certain extent because let's be real about it. I mean, the players would not be in the position they're in if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark coming into the league a couple years ago. What's happened since the growth that has happened in conjunction with that. But that's a 2-year period. If we were to go back 2 years, there's no way this negotiation would be going on the way it would be going on because they wouldn't have a leg to stand on. The league for many, many, many years was in the red. Right. Like, so that is another thing that the NBA or the WNBA is basically saying here is, we got to prove this over a longer period of time. And we can't commit to that level of the rev share because we think we're going to be operating at a massive loss. I don't have their books. I don't know, what the numbers, but just if you would think about it in any other profession where the labor is the worst case scenario, getting 4 to 5 times their current salary, and they're still pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. To me, that seems like overplaying your hand because this ain't the only collective bargaining agreement that's ever going to get done either, right? Like, you negotiate an out, get more of it the next time around.
You probably can gauge fan sentiment on this better than I can. Are fans, is there one side or the other that's winning the debate from the public standpoint?
I think everybody's kind of fed up now in general, but I do think, you have like I feel like the term legacy fan or whatever has been thrown out a lot with the WNBA. I feel like that group is on the player side, but I do think the fans that came in, a lot of the fans that helped get the players into the position they're in now because of this growth are on the side of the league in the sense of, okay, we see how much more you're going to get paid. We understand the dynamics of this situation. And at some point you're pushing too hard.
It doesn't just threaten what's going on with the league right now. And I was thinking about this yesterday as I was sitting in the car. It also threatens if you're a senior right now in the college basketball realm, Robin. You have to, and you're somebody that fancies yourself as somebody who's going to play in the WNBA. This is impacting you too. AZ Fudd and all these talented players that are sitting there at the collegiate level going, what's going on here? This is more than just the people that are in the WNBA right now.
Yeah, and look, and AZ Fudd basically, was begging Breanna Stewart to get the deal done the other day on her podcast. She's in a better position than most because NIL deals are so big in college now and players can get paid. But yes, and again, we're talking about the new max salary in the first year is like $1.3 million from $250,000. The new average player salary is like $535K from $120K. So think about, you have in all these cases, right? And I've been in unions and seen the way it works. You've got people pushing to have a transformative deal and to make a statement in women's sports and plant a flag, and that's great, all well and good. But then you also have, the WNBA is famous for players having to play internationally or in off-season leagues in order to supplement their income. So are you really, are those players, the quote-unquote rank and file, really going to be okay with punting on those paychecks that are going to see that average salary go from $120K to $535K? Yeah,
and I mean, you will still have a scenario where some of those players are still going to have to go play overseas, Robin.
Or in Unrivaled. Look, they're not getting exclusivity in this deal, so those options still exist. Maybe.
Let me ask you real quick, because I only got 30 seconds. Is Unrivaled doing all right?
Their tour stop in Philly did well. It looks like the tour stop in Brooklyn is going to do well. The one-on-one tournament garnered some interest, but from a TV rating standpoint, no, not in comparison to last year or really most anything.
Yeah, that was my concern, was the TV numbers on it are pretty paltry right now. Robin Lundberg does a great job on women's basketball with SI. Hey, WNBA, get a deal done. Robin needs something to cover. We got to make sure Robin can put food on the table too. Robin Lundberg, also catch him over on YouTube as well. Does a fantastic job. Sirius XM Radio too. Always appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for stopping by for a few minutes.
You got it.
Welcome back to the show. Thank you to Robin Lundberg for hanging out with us from SI. Does a great job on WNBA and women's basketball. We didn't talk about this in the football segment, and I was debating how to address it. I didn't want to just kind of do it as a throwaway story, because this isn't a throwaway issue. And that is what happened with Rondale Moore, which we didn't even have time to get to yesterday on the show. Sam, but it continues to be this issue, and you brought it up with AJ Brown, and I was glad you did, because it kind of weaves in and ties in to what happened this weekend with now former NFL wide receiver Rondale Moore taking his own life. And I could sit here and say passing away, and then say you go look into it and figure it out. But let's be honest about what this was. This young man, this 25-year-old, who I just met a few years ago at the Super Bowl in Arizona at a party I was at. We were doing, this is when we were still doing the cash-in radio show that we had launched before this. And Rondale Moore was there, and I got to meet him and talk to him. And he couldn't have been a nicer guy. And again, I talk about this all the time in sports, Sam. I've brought this up for years. the fact that we get peepholes into people's lives, and we all like to think we know what's going on. And, we'll watch A.J. Brown as an example. We'll watch A.J. Brown throughout an entire season and reading a book on the sideline and all this, and we'll make these judgments and decisions on who these people are. This goes all the way back for me to like Brett Favre, the Brett Favre days, when we all thought Brett Favre was, this amazing guy, and oh my God, and Deanna Favre, and everything was great. And then all of a sudden you find out the guy's popping pills. And then the next thing you know, he's getting naughty massages or trying to get naughty massages or doing things during massages from a team physio. And as time goes on, and as these peepholes get bigger into the lives of athletes because of the TMZs of the world, social media, them letting us in, us barging in, between all of that, you start to get a little bit of a bigger picture of what's going on. But you still never have the entire picture, Sam. And that's the point here. Nobody could have suspected, unless you were really close to Rondale Moore and you knew what was going on here, that this guy was going to take his own life in a parking garage. Yet here we are on February 24th, 2026, and Rondale Moore is gone from the world, and we're all scratching our heads as to why.
Yeah, this story, for me personally, was a little extra tough because Rondale Moore graduated high school the same year as me. I remember watching Rondale Moore as a college football player and thinking, hey, this kid's got something to him.
Yeah.
He might actually go on to, play well in the NFL. And then obviously his time with the Cardinals was a weird era of Cardinal football. But, I think what so many people, when we talk about, not just Rondale Moore, right, but like as unfortunate as it is, and I talked about it earlier, but A.J. Brown referenced it in this, video that he put out on social media over the weekend. This is something that's becoming like very common with these 23 to 25-year-old men with 3/4 of their lives in front of them. It is daunting, shocking, appalling. I don't know the adjective to use, but there's certainly one for it. It is a very, very, I guess, fragile time that we've entered that causes these, one-of-one athletes, these, top 1%ers at their job in the universe to feel so lost or alone or like they don't have support. I don't know. I think that there's something to be said about it being football players and this being a recurring theme with football players rather than any other athlete. And I think there's something to be said about like how much these teams are investing into mental health for their athletes. We talk so much outside of sports about how, mental health is real and like it's a thing. And like, I know that sports psychologists have become ever more prevalent in professional locker rooms and things like that. But like, Jason, how much are these teams really investing in the mental health of their athletes when they're absolutely pushing their physicals and their mentals to the brink at 320 days a year?
It's a great question that I would love to ask our friend Nick Ferguson about. Greg Doyle wrote a terrific column over at the Indy Star because Rondale Moore, obviously with ties to Indiana and Purdue and all that stuff, wrote a great column. And it's interesting. The day he passed away was the 10-year anniversary of a tweet that Rondale Moore had put up and pinned at the top of his X, formerly Twitter page, and it said, "Note to self: be patient." And a lot of people are looking back at that now and trying to figure out if there was some sort of significance. And all you're left to do is read the tea leaves, unless there is some sort of note that was left behind, which we don't know about. It's just tragic, And if I bring up, CTE and maybe there was issues there, Nick will get mad at me. But who knows what the hell was going on in this kid's life that led us to this point. And you bring up a good point about, what is the league doing? What are teams doing? Are teams doing stuff individually on their own? Are some teams better than others at dealing with this, at diagnosing problems? Or are they just so worried about winning? Is it the mentality of who was the coach at Ole Miss that was talking about the quarterback there, Trinidad Chambliss, and saying, well, you can't worry about your kids. You can't worry about, he can't worry about, yeah. talking about, taking care. Well, no, it wasn't him. It was the QB coach during his trial. But, the point is, are we worrying about the lives of these guys? Are we worrying about what's going on behind the scenes? Or are we just looking at them as football players, as commodities on the field? It's a tragic story. We'll obviously follow it if there are any new developments as it relates to the loss of Rondale Moore. We are coming back. A boxing match we don't need next. We proceed on this Tuesday. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. And as I promised at the start of the show, we're going to open this bad boy up. You guys can play along at home. Maybe we'll get a really cool autographed baseball, or maybe we'll get some relief pitcher that nobody's ever heard of, except his family. And that matters for somebody. Sam Yarnell, I came home from having some dinner yesterday. Opened up the computer. Still kind of trying to get my bearings after what's been a crazy 2 weeks in our household. So I'm not like as plugged in, as tuned into things. Normally breaking alert stuff comes over my phone and I see it right away. Now I'm seeing things like hours later because I'm still coming up from this whole thing with Dookie passing away. I come home and here it is. Mayweather Pacquiao 2. And I was like, wow, is it like 2017? No. It's the year 2026. And we're getting Pacquiao Mayweather 2. I don't know who in the world thinks we need this fight, Sam. 49 and 47 years old. Mayweather 49, Pacquiao 47. Why we need this fight? I know there are going to be people that try to make the argument, no, it's a great thing for boxing. I don't know who you are. I guess it's better than celebrity fights, but only a little. I was at the first Pacquiao Mayweather event. I didn't get to go inside the arena. I was in the media room where those of us that couldn't get credentials into the fight had to watch the fight. The build up to it was amazing. The fight stunk. I don't know why we should expect that over a decade later it's going to be any better than it was the first time.
Yeah, more importantly, Jason, I don't know how many people know that this is even a thing. I consider myself generally like pretty online. Spend a lot of my time, involved with what's going on in the world.
Do you?
I didn't know this was a thing until Jason sent it to me last night.
Really?
This is incredible. What an absolute cash grab this is. I mean, you gotta be absolutely kidding yourself if you don't think that this is not going to be anything but a way to get your money and get you to get within 500 feet of these two athletes. I'm with you. It's ridiculous. I don't understand the point. It feels like this was a move that boxing made to try and revive it in the face, or in the wake, I should say, of having Jake Paul and all this crap going on in the sport of boxing, right? And instead, they're just kind of doing exactly what the Jake Paul thing does and making it more of a joke. So yeah, I feel bad for those who, grew up in boxing in the heyday of American boxing in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, when boxing was what boxing was, even the early 2000s for that matter. But Jason, 20 years later, boxing has completely lost its luster. It is a sport that has been taken over by content creators just trying to gain views. I am confused by where boxing is at, and this move only makes me more.
Listen, I can understand why they're doing it, because people will buy it. People will go and watch it. If we've learned anything by now about the Jake Paul stuff, as dumb as it is, and as great as it was to see him get knocked on his rear end, people will watch it. There is a morbid curiosity that people have for these things. And these guys were supposed to have, one of the greatest fights. I got to be honest, I am very curious, because Pacquiao in his last fight at 47 actually looked really good. It was a majority draw against a really good fighter, a championship fighter. I don't know what the hell Mayweather is at this stage of his career, but you give him, 7 months to prepare. And I think Floyd Mayweather could probably turn out a good fight. Who knows? Maybe it actually will wind up being a good fight. Here's the thing, though. There's no titles on the line. It's literally just two old guys getting in the ring. I say old, they're the same age as me, so maybe I don't want to use that term. But you got these two guys that are going to get in the ring and square off against each other. This is going to be a real fight. This isn't, different weights and different gloves and minutes and all. This is going to be a real thing here in Las Vegas at the Sphere on September 19th. And also keep this in mind. Mayweather is still supposed to fight Mike Tyson this spring in a fight that still doesn't have a date, that still doesn't have a place where it's going to air. Those two are still supposed to fight. So I don't know. I mean, good luck. Hopefully nobody gets seriously hurt in it. That's about the only thing I can think of. And I'm also curious to see what else they put on the card, to go along with it. Because the one thing that Jake Paul has done, he's put fights on the card that still draw some intrigue, draw some interest. I wonder what else is going to go on this card.
Yeah. I think that, first of all, you are 100% correct in saying that these are two old guys fighting. I don't think that there was anything wrong there. Again, I'm not ever going to get by the cash grab part of it. That is all it feels
huge.
like. But you brought up an interesting point about what strength Floyd still has left. And this is a very anecdotal story, but I'm going to tell it because we got a minute and a half left in the segment.
Got a minute.
So about a couple of years ago, before you and I started doing the show, I was driving from my home in D.C. to work in New York or something like that. And I stopped at a rest stop on I-95. And I'm walking in to go to the bathroom. And I hold the door for this guy behind me, and I see his hat. He's wearing a hat that says TMT, the money team, Floyd Mayweather's brand. This is years after Floyd has gone out of popularity, years after Pacquiao Mayweather. And I turned to the guy and I said, "You big Floyd fan?" And he goes, "Big Floyd fan? It's my nephew. I'm his uncle." Wow. So I asked him, "Okay, well, does he still have it?" And he's like, "Yeah, still got it." So I think that if Floyd Mayweather, if this fight does in fact come to fruition in 7 months, I think Floyd Mayweather knocks him out.
One of the coolest things I've ever had a chance to do, the very first Super Bowl Radio Row I did almost 20 years ago in Miami, I got to interview Floyd Money Mayweather on Radio Row. One of the coolest things I've ever had a chance to do. We're back with Odds and Ends next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Wednesday means Kurt Heelan, pro basketball talk at NBCSports.com on the show tomorrow. You may have heard me in the big story talking about the San Antonio Spurs. We'll expand upon that with Kurt tomorrow on the show. Before we go, a couple of reminders. Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Make sure to subscribe today. 45 minutes of beautiful audio brought to you Monday through Friday. Go and subscribe. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, the place for all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. Monday through Friday TV version of the show. Extended conversations. Sports Wrap shorts, if you haven't checked these out yet. News breaks, stories break. We are there to talk about it on the YouTube channel with Sports Wrap shorts. 1 to 3 minute long videos, easy to consume, doesn't take up much of your time. Also, Sports Wrap shorts available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, you guessed it, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell, and wow, Duke back to being the number one ranked team in the nation after a hell of a win against Michigan. We had Bill Bender on the show yesterday talking about that game and much more. Both of them are going to probably wind up being 1 seeds, though, when all is said and done, Sam Yarnell. So who knows? Maybe we'll see them meet up in the Final Four.
Maybe, Jason, and something you and I have been talking about for weeks, quite frankly, especially with Bill on Mondays on the show, is this is setting up to be Not unlike last year, right? Very snooze-worthy first weekend, but we're going to get to that second weekend, and it's going to be boom, all systems go, some of the best basketball that you've ever seen from the Sweet 16 on in this tournament. That is what I am incredibly confident in. What I'm also incredibly confident in, Jason Page, is that Duke won't actually finish the season as the number one team. I don't think they'll even go into the ACC tournament as the number one team in the nation. Maybe a 2, maybe a 3, whatever you want to put them at. But the fact of the matter is, Duke still has to play Virginia and North Carolina before their season ends. My best bet for the team that would be number one as we head into conference tournament play, the Michigan Wolverines. Arizona's got a really hard schedule left. Duke's got a really hard schedule left. Michigan could finish with as an only 2-loss team headed into the conference tournament. That'd be pretty impressive.
Quick NFL note, because we mentioned NFL earlier in the show. It is official. Falcons GM says they're releasing Kirk Cousins on March 11th. We'll see where he winds up in this offseason. He's going to get a bag somewhere. Somebody, because that's what Kirk Cousins does, as you like to say. The ultimate bag getter. Chris Sale, a 1-year deal, $27 million extension with the Braves for him. And Tariq Skubal, only going to make one start in the WBC, Sam. Quick thoughts on those, and then we're going to open up this box here.
Yeah, I told you this would happen, right? The Dominican Republic is the team you should be betting on. They are a historically talented team heading into this WBC, and the USA is, I'm sorry, folks. The US is cooked. They have no shot in this tournament. They never did, and you're going to get the same news about Paul Skeens in a couple weeks that you got, or in about a week that you got about Tariq Skubal. No way the Pirates let him go full games in this tournament.
Yeah, well, that's a problem for the WBC. All right, what autographed baseball will we get out of this box? I've been teasing it for a couple of days here on the show. I figure we're due for some good luck. I won this at a Dave & Buster's over the weekend, out of the prize closet they have there. We have ripped it open. Let's see what we get here. Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe we'll get an Ohtani. I'm gonna get a David Aardsma ball. That's what's coming. I could see it coming. It's gonna be David Aardsma. All right, here we go. Moment of truth, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see it. It's got an inscription on it, which is kind of cool. 78 Rookie of the Year. Who was the 1978 Rookie of the Year, Sam? Yeah, I know.
Well, which one?
I think I can't tell if it's NL or AL. Is it Oh, Bob Horner. That's what I got. Bob Horner, 1978.
Not Lou Whitaker, who was the American League Rookie of the Year.
National League Rookie of the Year. 1978 Rookie of the Year. Well, somebody has to like Bob Horner. Maybe our St. Louis audience, because I think he was a Cardinal, wasn't he? Bob Horner? No? Braves? Let's see who you can find there.
Brave. He was a Brave.
He was a Brave. That's what I thought. Maybe our friends watching in Atlanta, over there on Peachtree Sports Network, somebody will want it. We'll get it to a fan down there. 1978 NL Rookie of the Year, Bob Horner. Top 10 in home runs. Pretty good player. 4 home runs in one game back in 1986. One of just a few players to obviously do that. So there you go. It's not Shohei Ohtani. It's not Bobby Witt Jr. It's Bob Horner. There you go. That's gonna do it. That was it wasn't Al Capone. It wasn't Geraldo Rivera opening Al Capone's vault, kind of bad, but it was a little bit of a letdown. I was hoping.
Speaking of great baseball players, you mentioned the Chris Sale thing, and I had an interesting thought when that news came down this morning.
Quickly.
What hat does Chris Sale wear in the Hall of Fame? Red Sox or Braves?
You mean he's not wearing the White Sox?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the Hall of Fame moment of his career was cutting up all those jerseys.
Never know. Enjoy the spring training baseball. We'll see you all here tomorrow.
What's your answer?
I don't have an
answer.
Red Sox. I'd go Red Sox.
I'm with you.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I'd go Red Sox. Yeah, it's going to do it for us. Thank you to Robin Lundberg. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Kurt Heelan on the show tomorrow to talk NBA. I'm Jason Page. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you later. Hi there. I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? subscribe. We've got Sports Wrap Shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half as they're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.